Hey guys, I want to start this video off by taking a second to talk about a Magic the Gathering podcast called Casual Ponderings. The hosts, Seth, Corey, and Brandon, all discuss topics concerning the Legacy metagame and how new cards or decks interact with the format as a whole. Episodes air every Monday night on Spotify, Podbean, Podtail, iHeartRadio, and other different podcasting services. Listening to the podcast helps keep me informed on what's going on in Legacy, so I highly recommend you give them a listen. What's going on, guys? Wanted to do something a little bit different for today's video. Only had 4 of the videos record this week, but that's kind of perfect because I was wanting to make this video anyway. I wanted to share my thoughts on what I've learned from playing Legacy at this tournament and some of the matchups and kind of my mindset, how I approached going into the tournament and as I was navigating my way through it. So this tournament was held by my local game store when I'm back home, and I thought it was really cool for them to try to get themselves out there and offer a prize like a Bayou. My main goal was to go and support the local game store, just because if I'm there and I'm giving my entry fee or whatever, that's going to allow for prize support to be better for the next time or the future events or whatever. And it's also just going to give the store a little bit more confidence and the ability to recognize that these events will fire and they will bring the store a lot of money. So that was kind of my main reason that I was even wanting to participate in the event. I'm not particularly, or I wasn't very confident in my ability to win any sort of tournament like this, especially when there's a lot of pretty good players in the room. So it was probably like a crew of 6 or 7 that drove down from Arkansas, and I traveled about 4 hours up from where I'm currently staying, and then a lot of the other people that were there were mainly locals and stuff. There was probably, I think it was 20 people exactly that signed up for the event, so I think that's really cool. I think especially because it was mainly word of mouth, spread by word of mouth, and I thought it was really cool for this shop to throw this Legacy event this size, especially because Legacy is such an expensive format to play in paper, so kudos to the shop. So I was planning on playing Maverick for the event. I honestly wasn't even sure I was going to go until Tuesday, and I waited until Wednesday to kind of talk to people and ask, hey, can I borrow a deck or whatever. I had a few options. A couple of them were Maverick, 4-color loam, Grixis Delver, Sneak and Show, or Enchantress. I guess you could call Enchantress an option. But anyway, I requested Maverick, and I was low on the deck. I had the most experience on it, so that's kind of why I figured that I should probably play that. I probably only got 20 matches on Maverick in my life, maybe 30. So not a lot of experience, but it definitely more than any of the other decks. I think Grixis Delver's probably the best out of that, but I wasn't quite sure if it had already been loaned out. Yeah, I requested Maverick and was on the deck. I remember after asking, I immediately regretted my decision, wishing I asked for 4-color loam instead. I think that going turn 1 Chalice of the Void on 1 is probably a lot stronger than anything that Maverick's going to be able to do. I guess Maverick has Caracas and Swords to Plowshares on turn 1 to stop or prevent death. But I don't know. I think that you want to be doing something a little more unfair in Legacy than just playing green 2/2s that cost 3 mana. I didn't really feel like Maverick was going to be well suited for the meta at the shop anyway. I'll get to that in just a little bit. I felt like adding in the Dark Depths and Thesmia Stage to give the really fair Maverick deck a combo-y finish so that I could get through board stalls in the fair matchups, or kind of like a panic emergency way to win versus some of the fair decks. I mean against some of the combo decks. I was thinking if I'm able to close a game out by turn 3 or 4, then that's going to be kind of beneficial. But as I learned from playing through the league that you guys unfortunately had to witness this week, I think that if you're going to play Maverick, you need to play all of the completely fair things in the deck so that everything you draw is just making it harder for the opponent to win, rather than you just wasting resources on trying to develop your own board. You need to just stop them from doing whatever and just crash in with a Knight or a Thalia and just take your damage when you can. I'm personally not a fan of, after playing through it, I don't think that Dark Depths and Thespian Stage necessarily belong in the deck, especially, or whatever build I had was just wrong. I could just be wrong, but whatever. I tested a little bit off camera, and I was able to beat Tess and Sneak and Show, so I kind of felt a little more confident in some of the unfair matchups that I figured that I was going to see. Fast forward to Friday, I drove 4 hours north to play Legacy Friday Night Magic the night before the Win-A-Duel tournament, and I played a little bit better, probably a little bit more solid of a 75 Maverick, because I requested help from a friend to say, like, look, this deck sucks. How can I include these two cards, a Dark Deaths combo, and play more regular Maverick? I still wanted to play the combo for some reason. I'm not quite sure. Probably because I invested in the cards in paper and I kind of wanted to get a little bit of use out of it. It's probably what my brain was subconsciously telling me to do. That night I go 1-2-1. I lost to Timber Delver. I tied or went to time with Hogak, which I feel like we got robbed out of 20 minutes. I lost to Jund after that, and then I beat Blue-Black Death Shadow versus Josh. This is going to come up a little bit later, but me and Josh were at the very bottom of the bracket, and I don't know, I'll just save that for later, but it's pretty funny that we were playing in the very bottom the night before. One thing I kind of noticed about Friday, or from my play Friday, was that I know this about myself anyway, but I got really nervous whenever I was playing my first round and people were watching me. I only had about 5 minutes left on the clock, and it was game 3, and all my decisions were really rushed and not very practiced, so I didn't know what any of the correct lines were, because I didn't have time to sit and think about what I was going to be able to do, because I kind of had to race against the clock, or I would have had like 2 draws in the night, and that's not very cool. I'd like to play at a reasonably quick pace, so I tend to really stress out about all of my decisions when people are watching me. So I figured that if I was gonna play at in a larger setting or whatever, and assuming that I made it to a couple of rounds deep into the event and started to have people watch me, I needed to be on a deck that I felt more comfortable on. So after thinking about it for a while, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and play what I'm comfortable on. So I borrow some diamonds from a friend, sleeve up the rest of these cards in this 75, and voila, this is what I played for the Legacy Win-A-Duel. This is the exact 75. Kind of want to go into some of my... First, I'm going to go into the matchups, and then I'm going to go into some of the cards of why they're in the deck. So I was expecting a good number of test players to show up to the room. That's the Epic Storm, and this new brew that I guess, I don't know what version it is, like 9.72 or something, whatever Bryant Cook it just brewed up. The deck is completely insane, and I really didn't think that I had a lot of game against it as Maverick. I had a couple of hate pieces. I had a Collector Oof and like Deafening Silence, but I didn't feel very confident in that matchup. So I wanted to at least be able to, if my opponent stumbled, I wanted to be able to capitalize on it and kill him immediately. I guess Maverick can kind of feel that same niche too, but I don't know. I just felt a lot more comfortable being able to, like, in my head, thinking about playing against Tess. I wanted to be able to kill him pretty quickly and have a couple of light interactive spells. I was also worried about Bomberman and Delver and all of Delver's friends. I wasn't sure. I was expecting like 4 to 5 different sorts of Delver decks, so I was thinking that there could have been a Bug, a Rug, a Blue-Red. I guess Death Shadow kind of falls into Delver in that sort of similar game plan. So I was expecting a lot of Delver tests and at least multiple copies of Bomberman. So with all those things in mind, I figured I should go ahead and have a reasonable clock. The Maverick and Delver matchup has actually gotten a lot closer and probably in favor of Delver recently. Maverick used to particularly bully on Delver strategies, but that deck has gotten so good and it's gotten so many tools at its disposal that I just don't think that Maverick was going to be able to slow it down, especially the blue-red version or Grixis. I think both of those are very strong, but blue-red probably just a little bit better because of Veil of Summer. Some of the other decks that I was thinking about were Reanimator, Jund, Sneakacho, Hogak, Lands, Mono Red Prison, and Infect. I kind of had an idea that maybe there could have been some other random decks because Legacy's a pretty wide open format. So I don't know. I felt that this is going to be a lot better suited than Maverick for an event like with all those different decks. So keeping those things in mind, I guess I'll go through the main deck first. So I've got 4 Reclaimers because it's pretty stock to have 4. It grinds really well. Sometimes you can just attack with a 3/4 and that's good enough. So I like that a lot. Dark Confidant allows you to, if you have a turn 1 Dark Confidant after pitching a diamond, you get to refill your hand and try to go off within the next couple of turns by drawing those extra cards. So I think that's pretty, I felt pretty comfortable having 4. I could see going to 3, but 3 or 4 is kind of where you want to be. Hexmage makes our 20/20 on turn 2, so we kind of want to keep that. The Mox Diamonds felt really good in paper. I've previously on the channel I've critiqued Mox Diamond for being kind of meh. Didn't really like it a whole lot because you're having to play a card and discard another card from your hand in order to keep it. So it just feels really bad sometimes, and the second Mox Diamond is so terrible. So wasn't quite sure how I was going to feel about it, but I definitely at least three or 4 Mox Diamonds where I would want to be if I sleeved it up again. Being able to have 2 mana on turn 1 is just very good. 4 Crop Rotation, just kind of have to do it in this deck. 4 Thoughtseize, I liked, I guess 4 Thoughtseize and 2 Duress. So most of the depths list were playing, I think 7 discard spells, but I was really expecting there to be a lot of Veil of Summer at this event. So I guess the way to fight through Veil of Summer is to get your first one countered so that your second Thoughtseize or second Duress or whatever kind of gets to go through, and you have like more options to choose from. But didn't really want to fool with it. I think you would have to go up to like 8 or 9 for you to start like being able to cut through some of the Veil of Summers. So I think 6 hand disruption spells is kind of where I wanted to be. I was very happy about that. Once Upon a Time was insane. That card did so much work all the time. I was very glad to I don't know. I'm playing a black-green deck, and it did not feel like I was playing black-green because I had Once Upon a Time as my turn 1 ponder. I had Crop Rotation as a better demonic tutor for this deck. I don't know. It's just the deck. It felt so good to be able to cast this free blue card, and there were times when I would draw it a couple turns into the game, and yeah, it wasn't as good to pay 2 mana to look and see about getting something like maybe a random creature or a random land, but that was like being able to hit your like 4th land drop or whatever and have like, I don't know, finding a Dark Depths off of your top 5 like turn 3 or 4 after they already like shut off your first attempt. It wasn't bad. It really wasn't that bad. Very big fan of this card. Game 1 for sure. I went with 3 Abrupt Decays. Some of the list that I saw online were going anywhere from like 4 to 2. So 3 kind of seemed right, and it also went along with Abrupt Decay was kind of one of my last cards to sleeve up as my non-land spells, or I guess was one of my spells or whatever. So yeah, I have the one Safekeeper in the main deck. Some lists I see are playing 2 in the main. Some are playing like 3 in the side. I think most lists that I have seen are playing like 1 to 2 in the main and 1 to 2 in the side. But I only had access to 2. I just decided to go with the 1-1 split. Went with 2 Bayous that I borrowed. I'll get back to this stuff later. The 4 Dark Depths, kind of important for the deck. It's almost like it's a quintessential part of the combo. 4 Verdant Catacombs, 3 Urborg. I didn't have access to the 4th Urborg, so I would have made the 2nd Snow-Covered Forest the 4th Urborg. That's the secret. Ooh. 4th Esmia Stages, 1 Snow-Covered Swamp, 1 Sejory Step to give my creature protection, or my Merit Lage protection, so it doesn't get bounced, or it can just attack through flying blockers. Caracas to bounce enemy Merit Lages or Thalias or whatever else is legendary, and then 1 nurturing Peatland. I don't know if I ever cracked Peatland. If I'm gonna be honest, I might have cracked it once, but I don't know. It was fine. I don't have any critiques for it. Double Wasteland felt very good. I played some lists that only have 1 Wasteland or 1 Ghost Quarter, and I was very, very happy to be playing with this card. If I were going into Death and Taxes heavy meta, or I was expecting a lot of Caracas, then I would probably go 1 Wasteland, 1 Ghost Quarter, so that I'm able to Pithing Needle Wasteland and Ghost Quarter Caracas, or still have access to Ghost Quarter and Caracas. Yeah, I guess that's the main deck. Nothing too crazy here. Sideboard, there's 2 cards that are like pretty glaringly bad, but have 2 Pithing Needle mainly for Wasteland matchups. I don't think I brought them in against anything else. I guess there's an argument to bring them in against Tess, who you're able to Pithing Needle, Wishclaw Talisman, but I think that's pretty much it that you can name in that matchup. So not quite sure how good it is. 2 Surgicals. I wanted to be able to have some game against Reanimator or Hogak. Wasn't sure if they were going to show up, but Surgical's just fine, and like some of the other matchups as well, it's probably better than Abrupt Decay versus Tess. So for whatever that's worth. 2 Veil of Summer. This is the next card to get banned in Legacy, and I have access to cast it, so why not play 2? I went with 2 Collector Oof rather than 1 Collector Oof. I was expecting a lot of Tess and Bomberman, and that card is very good against it. Bomberman has to keep, I don't know if they have it in the main deck or if they just board it in, but they have to ensure that they have Swords to Plowshares so that they're able to continue playing Magic. And Swords to Plowshares and their Chalice on 1 is a pretty big non-bow, so definitely was happy to have 2 of these. And also with the creatures in the sideboard, I was happy to have these because Once Upon a Time is able to help me fetch out some of my cards from the side. So pretty happy about that. 2 Plague Engineers, just in case Death and Taxes was going to be there. I wasn't sure if I was going to run into it or not. Also, I'm not sure if any of the crew that came down from Arkansas were going to be playing any sort of janky merfolk or goblins or something. So just as a hedge against that, I'm not sure how the goblins matchup is. I feel like it should be pretty decent, but Plague Engineers should just like completely destroy that entire strategy. I played Ravenous Trap because I wanted to have a little bit of game against, I wanted to play against Hogak, and I'd probably bring it in against Reanimator. Ravenous Trap 1 should have been Surgical Extraction 3, and the other Ravenous Trap could have just been another Safekeeper, something like that, maybe another Force of Vigor. It's not very good, but I didn't have access to 2 Ley Lines, which was something that I saw a lot of the Depths decks were playing. I played the Sylvan Library for some of the blue decks that were going to try to grind me out of cards. Felt pretty good in round 7, I'll say that for sure. I played the second Sylvan Safekeeper because, okay, so my thoughts on Sylvan Safekeeper are it's kind of like Depth's version of Echoing Truth. Storm is always going to board in Echoing Truth for I guess like every time they play against anything, and that's kind of how it feels with Depths because if you're playing Storm, you're going to board in Echoing Truth so that you're able to deal with your opponent's permanent based interaction. That you just like they just stick their damping sphere and it's just like, oh, you get to Echoing Truth it back to their hand and go off. That's kind of how Safekeeper feels. Is that like most every matchup is going to have some sort of way to deal with a Merit Lage. So if we're able to play the Safekeeper or bring in an extra Safekeeper from the side, we're able to like fight through my opponent's hate. Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. So I brought that in most times just because like if their deck has an ability like some sort of way to deal with a Merit Lage, then I want to bring that in. And last but definitely not least, I have Force of Vigor in the side. If I was expecting a little bit more like Prison or I don't know any other like heavier artifact sort of stacksy kind of decks, then I think I'd have played probably a second Force of Vigor instead of the second Collector Oof with this current list or whatever. Anyway, it was this is what my brain was thinking. But I don't know, I kind of felt like the second Collector Oof was going to be really good with my 4 of Once Upon a Time, and especially since Oof is so good against Bomberman and Tess. So yeah, that's the deck that I played for the event. Alright, so on to my matches now. My first round was... Okay, I guess I'll preface it by saying I lost the die roll every match except for rounds 4 and rounds 6. So I was not very lucky in that aspect of the day. So thankfully my deck was also helping me out in the luck department by giving me the draws and the hands I needed to win. So that's great. My match 1 was versus Tess on the draw. I sat down and my opponent did a bunch of crazy Test stuff on turn 1, and I was like, well, I'm not going to be playing this tournament for very long because they're about to just completely run me over, put me on the wrong side of the bracket, and I'm going to die to some sort of janky jump. But we fight through. He demolishes me game 1. Game 2, I make a 20-20 on turn 2 and smack him. And game 3, my opponent, I think, played a Mox Diamond, a Mox Opal, and then LED Crack, and spun the what's it called? It's the Windfall from the graveyard. It's the Echo of Eons. So went turn 1. That didn't play a land drop. Didn't play land, and I think I'd mulliganed to 6 that game. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm gaining an extra card here, but I think my 6 was pretty fine. I think I had a turn 2 or 3 Merit Lage. What happened right here? Yeah, I drew 7 cards, and I promise you I'd have mulled this every game. I drew 1 Wasteland and 6 black cards. And I was like, well, this isn't very good. So my opponent goes land drop, ponder, or I think goes land drop, like spins like 3 or 4 cards, doesn't really get anywhere with it. So I was kind of thankful that they had discarded down to 3, I guess it was like 3 or 4 cards. Played their land and passed. And I draw a 9-land, I think another black card. I was like, well, I'm just going to aggressively wasteland here. And I trade my land for their land, and my opponent just sits there drawing cards. I sit there, and since I'm playing 26 lands in a deck, I was like, all right, we're going to actually... I'm pretty sure I hit a running land the next turn or whatever, and I was able to kind of start playing Magic, and I think I played 2 Dark Confidants and beat him down with that. So it was pretty fun, match 1. I think my opponent, game 3, played around Veil of Summer, or else they would have went off. So, it's a respectable thing to do, I guess. So my second match, I lose the die roll, and my opponent kills me turn 2 with Tess. So that was fun. I just got out of sweating from playing my first match against Tess, and now I had to do it again. Opponent murders me game 1. Game 2, I bring it. I think I'm able to oof. Was that the game? No, that was the last game. Game 2, I'm able to surgical an LED. By the way, here's a fun fact: you're not able to surgical echo while. So I guess when your opponent cracks LED, you're not able to respond by surgicaling the echo that hits the graveyard, because what is it? Lion's Eye Diamond it's a mana ability, and there's no window for you to respond when an opponent's activating mana abilities. So I just hit the LED instead. We drew 7 cards. I was able to crop rotation and make a Merit Lage and kill him the next turn. So he wasn't able to untap and just murder me with a Fresh Gripper 7 and an already established board state. In game 3, we both mulligan to, I think I draw my 7 and it's kind of okay, but I'm playing against Test, so I have to have turn 2 or 3 Dark Death or Merit Lage, or I'm just not going to be able to win the game. And we get into a mulligan war with each other, and we decide to stop at 4. So I keep like 2-land Collector Oof and Surgical or Pithing, or not Pithing, like Veil. I don't know. It's 2 hate pieces, 2 lands. It's like, well, this is just really bad, and I'm able to somehow navigate my way through because my cards are. I'm pretty sure I'll win that matchup if we're both on 4 cards, because I have creatures that can attack for 2, and Tess just has to use a bunch of cards to kill you in one turn. So they didn't have access to a bunch of cards. I was able to kind of thought seize them off from doing anything for the rest of the game. So yeah, it's really well played match, I think, by both of us. So kudos. Round 3, I play against a deck that I've heard the owner of the deck call it Golos Post, but I am proposing a referendum on that, and I think Goal Post sounds a lot cooler. So I play against Goal Post round 3, which the object of their deck is to make a lot of mana and hit you with an Eldrazi. I'm pretty sure that's what it wants to do. I didn't get to see it happen because game 1 I murdered my opponent with a 2020. Game 2, my opponent has 2 mana and a Thespian Stage, and for some reason I'm thinking that this is a great idea for me to play my Dark Depths into that without a way to crack my own Dark Depths in response, because there was a Sorcerer Spyglass on my Hex Mage. So I don't know why I did that. Don't know why I did, but my opponent hit me with my own 2020. So that sucked. But game 3, I think I was able to. What did I do game 3? I'm pretty sure game 3 I just hit him with a 2020 game, or turn 3 or 4. Matchup didn't feel just too hard. I think I was able to wasteland him off of some of his lands or something that match or that game. So round 4, I played against Blue-Red Delver. I was very nervous because I knew that my opponent was probably one of the better players in the room, and I'm going into this not thinking that I'm the best player in the room by any means. But I sit down and I'm already kind of nervous because this man is about to just run over me. I've heard that he's got 7 bolts in the deck. I think I talked to him after and he said he had 6, but rumor it was that he had 7 bolts in his deck. So I was like, oh, he's just really trying to kill me with Blue-Red Delver. I've won that die roll, and I promise you, if I had lost the die roll to that match, I would have just got ran over. Game 1, I was able to make a. What happened? I think my opponent force a will to Hex Mage that I was kind of hoping and praying that they would counter with a force because they were tapped out, and so my opponent lost 2 cards right there, and I was able to stick 2 Eldritch Reclaimers and just go to town with 2 3/4s, and I was able to win the damage race because my Reclaimers weren't able to be bolted. and that was my opponent's primary source of creature removal. So felt good to be able to get in there with those and play, I guess you could say, a 1-mana 3/4 fair Magic. Game 2, it's Blue-Red Delver on the play, and I just wasn't able to play Magic that game. Got dazed and forced off of everything. I don't know if I got wastelanded, but I think it killed me in like 4 turns. I went turn 1 Delver, it flipped on turn 2, played a second Delver on turn 2, was able to like interact with me on the other mana, and like they both flipped and just like murdered me. There was no counterplay. Game 3, I win I'm on the play game 3, and I play. I think I'm able to make the Merit Lage turn 3, or I'm able to make it turn 2 and attack in on turn 3. It's something like that. Not quite sure. Can't remember. But if I had one more land, I would have been able to activate Elvish Reclaimer to sacrifice a land and give my Merit Lage protection with Sesri Step. My opponent was doing a pretty good job of bluffing Vapor Snag for the entirety of game 3. I sit there for probably 5 minutes just thinking, do I just crack this thing right now and just hope he doesn't have it? Because if he would have had it, then I would have just lost on the spot, because I would have lost so many resources and didn't have the ability to rebuild with the state of my hand. And I think I didn't have many cards in hand anyway, so I would have just ran over me. So I buy into his bluff, and I don't crack my Dark Depths and make the 20/20. So my opponent, I think, beats me down 3 turns. I draw a timely Abrupt Decay to kill an Arcanist that would have been able to cast a Lightning Bolt and kill me or put me down to 0. So I was able to survive, go down to 1. On that end step, I'm pretty much forced to make the 20/20, and I find out I'm able to make 20/20 and just kill him with it. So that was good. Talked to my opponent after, and he kept a double Wasteland hand, and I went turn 2 Pithing Needle, or turn 1 or 2 Pithing Needle. So on Wasteland. So yeah, I mean, if I would have known about the second Wasteland, I'm pretty sure I would have fired it off, because double Wasteland should beat my deck most of the time if I don't have Pithing Needle. So yeah, that was a really hard game, a really stressful game. I was very glad to be able to walk outside and get some cool air after that one. My round 5, I play against Rug Delver, so I'm just getting really lucky right here. I'm playing against the same decks twice, so I must have a lot of practice against it now. I play against Rug Delver, and I think at this point I was locked in for top 4, and my opponent was not locked in for top 4. So after looking at the sheet for a second, I was like, yeah, I'll just concede to you and let you get in. So we played it out anyway, and I can't remember what exactly happened there, but I was able to get it in 3 games. We didn't have to play, but I was able to get it 2-1, just because, just to not just be bored for an hour. But I was able to get that 2-1. I have a note here that my opponent played like 3 or 4 Hooting Mandrills in our 3 games, so I just want to give a shout out to Hooting Mandrills. So round 6, top 4, and I get paired up against the goalpost guy again. And game 1, I won the die roll that game. So game 1, I was able to kill him pretty quickly. And game 2, I think my opponent was on the play, and I kept a hand of like 2 lands and 5 1-drops. It was something like that. My opponent goes turn 1 Chalice on 1, and I don't remember seeing Chalice in the previous game, so I was like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have kept his hand. I almost just scooped on the spot, but I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So I'm able to like draw into playing a Dark Confidant on turn 2, and off of my first Bob trigger, I revealed a Force of Vigor, and I was like, well, this is fantastic. And my opponent plays an Ensnaring Bridge and has a Chalice on 1. It That was like another hate piece somewhere along the lines in here. That was like 3 artifact hate pieces, but I was able to force a vigor, take out the ensnaring bridge and the chalice, so I was able to crop rotate, make the 2020, and just crack into him. So felt pretty good. I'm not quite sure if that's how the game went, but I'm pretty sure I finished the game with a 2020. So my round 7, I was paired against Josh, which I had previously mentioned was the guy that me and him were at the bottom of the barrel the night before. So we sit down, we're shuffling up or whatever, and he's like, "We're not supposed to be here." I was like, "You're exactly right. We're not." So we're just talking, pretty stressed out because we played a lot of Magic by this point, and kind of take it slow for a second, shuffle up, and start playing. He wins the die roll, which I was very sad to see, because from what I had known up to this point, he was playing Blue-Black Shadow, and that's an incredibly terrible matchup for me, from what I feel, because they're just a little glass cannonier than Delver, but they're able to close the game out quicker too. So, didn't feel very good about it. I think game 1, he's able to kind of do just shadow things and just kill me. I remember I thought seized him, and he had, I think he had like a Death Shadow on the field, and he had a Berserk in hand, and I don't know why, but that Berserk just completely terrified me. I was like, yeah, he's just going to crack me for like 24 real quick and just murder me. So, I don't know, I just thought that was a funny card to be seeing. Makes a lot of sense for Berserk to be in the 13/13 1-mana creature deck. But game 2, so I talked to Brandon about ask him when did he leave or whatever, and he said that he left. This was my round 4 opponent, and also a member of Casual Ponderings, and he said, like, yeah, it just like looked like Josh completely had it rolled up game 2, so we decided to go ahead and leave so we could eat and drink some beer. And I was like, okay. He didn't have any faith in me whatsoever. But I'm pretty sure the board state was like abysmal for the first half of game 2, but I was somehow able to just like perfectly draw my way out of that terrible situation. I think I might have had an Abrupt Decay to kill a shadow or something, maybe. I'm not quite sure what exactly I did, but I was able to, I think the last play of the game was my opponent had a Brazen Borrower, and I had a Sylvan Safekeeper, and I had not yet made my 2020, but I had it on board that I was able to make it. And my opponent, I think, just decides to hold it in their hand, and I think attack, get me down to like 1. I'm pretty sure I was at 1, and I crack, make my 2020, and so my opponent wouldn't have been able to use Petty Theft, or the Petty Theft portion of Brazen Borrower to bounce my Merit Lage, because I had a couple of lands and Sylvan Safekeeper online, so wouldn't have been able to do that. So my opponent goes cast a Brazen Borrower, and before blocks I'd use Elvish Reclaimer to Sezri Step, give Pro Blue, and I'm able to crack in for the victory right there, so that was nice. So we go to game 3. He's on the play. I just know this isn't going to be very good. I can't remember exactly how I boarded for the matchup, but I palm a couple of cards in my hand. It's like, I don't know if this is going to be any good or not. Just kind of shuffle stuff around. I'm not sure what I want to be doing. And I was like, I think I'm going to go ahead and just put this Sylvan Library in the deck. I'm pretty sure I was supposed to have this in the deck the game before anyway. So I swapped something out for the Sylvan Library, and I think I'm starting to get tempoed out of the game. I think was able to take like Wasteland, take me off of my second land, and I draw like a snow-covered forest off the top of my deck, and I'm able to cast Sylvan Library. And I think I needed another land to be able to go off to be able to make my 2020, and use Sylvan Library. I look at the top 3 cards, didn't hit anything, and I wasn't in a position to be able to pay 8 life and just keep digging. So I just kind of had to hope and pray that I was able to survive until the next turn so I can make a 2020, and then survive the turn after so that I'm able to crack in there with the 2020. And my opponent's just beating me down with this Gurmag Angler. It's like 18, 13, 8, 3, and like on my 3, I'm able to finally draw the land that I need with Sylvan Library. It's kind of funny because I don't know why, but I played Modern a lot longer than Legacy, and I'm at 3 life. And Sylvan Library, look at the 3 cards, and I have a Verdant Catacombs, and it's like, okay, great. I think I've already got my basic swamp on the battlefield, and I needed a black source. But I just sat there and I drew it, and I was like, holy crap, I'm about to lose because I'm not able to. I'm only at 3 life, so I'm not able to Verdant fetch and get an Overgrown Tomb and Shock. I don't know why, but this is 7 rounds, and I'm like, this land's dead because I'm not able to. I forgot I was playing with $300 lands in the deck, so I'm just like, okay, crack it, get a $300 black source, make my cast my Vampire Hexmage, and I block the Gurmag Angler with it, sack it, target my Dark Depths, and make my 20/20. He didn't have the removal spell, so I'm able to crack in and steal the Bayou from my good opponent, Josh. It's a very hard couple of matches, and I'm sure we were both mentally exhausted by that point, but I was just able to draw my way perfectly out of it. I'm pretty sure if I played that same match 4 more times, I'd probably lose. I'd probably lose 3 times and win 2 times. So I don't know. It was very well played and navigated by my opponent. I think he said that he could have, in game 1, he could have tucked away a Brazen Borrower that I thought seized away from him. I think that was the only thing that he said that he could have done a little bit better. But it was a long day, and we'd been playing for several hours before, so kudos to all of my opponents, because I don't think any of them did anything that was just blatantly obvious. I'm just clearly better than you. Completely kidding there. I feel really good about winning the Bayou. I'm very happy that I was able to. I don't know, I've been putting a lot of work into making this channel and studying up on Legacy and all of its interactions, and I had created a reputation for myself at my game store up north that I was a 1-2-1 kind of guy. I went 1-2-1 the night before, and I was joking around saying, look, I'm got to be unlucky tonight, so I'm going to be lucky tomorrow, and I still stand by that statement. If you don't go 1-2-1, you're not going to be able to win a Legacy tournament with 20 people to win a Bayou. So I'm very firm in my 1-2-1 convictions. But I don't know, being a little more serious, I'm really happy that I was able to, I was able to prove to myself that I'm not a super terrible player. I know a lot of my folks up north, they joke about it, and I understand. I'm taking it lighthearted as well, but I don't know, I just knew that, like, yeah, I'm not the greatest Legacy player in the area by any means. I'm very close towards the bottom is kind of how I perceive myself. But I don't know, I'm able to give myself, winning was just able to, I don't know, it gave me confidence to go 7-0. And like, I don't know, I'm not just a completely awful player. That's one thing that I've kind of struggled with for a while. I don't know, you just hear it a lot, so it just kind of starts to stick after a minute. But I don't know, I'm able to like break myself out of feeling like that. So I'm really happy that I was able to play to the level that I did for such an extended period of time. And I was able, I don't know, I put a lot of work into this channel, and I finally got something out of not just the channel, but just kind of like out of just all of the work that I put into just studying Legacy. Yeah, it feels really good to feel a little more credible now that I have like a tournament result to my name. Yeah, it's a shop with 20 people. It's not an SCG like top 8 or anything, but I'm really proud of what I did. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. One thing that I noticed that I was kind of doing between rounds was that I would, if I had time at the end of the round, then I would just go outside and just let the cool air hit me. I wouldn't try to get too excited or too down about anything. I don't think I made any major misplays, so I wasn't able to, I didn't tilt throughout it. I made the one misplay in round 3 versus Goalpost when I played my Dark Depths into the into my opponent's Thespian stage. But I mean, I don't know, I kind of just shook my head between while I shuffled up for round 3 or game 3 of that match, and was able to kind of just stay cool and kind of just forgot about it as I was playing. I don't know. I just think that just staying hydrated in between rounds and just like trying to not think just too much about Magic in between all of the Magic that I played was really nice. They would go outside and talk to some of my friends about kind of like how did their matches go, so I was able to kind of get it off of me. I felt very good about my 75 that I sleeved up. I'd probably change a couple things due to like card availability. But I would play the 4th Urborg instead of the Snow-Covered Forest, and I'd probably play Leyline or something else, maybe another Safekeeper and Force of Vigor instead of the Ravenous Traps. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to do. So now I wanted to show you, here's a video of me waving my mildly played Bayou that I won from this tournament, won it at this tournament. So yeah, really excited that I was able to get this. It's a pretty expensive card, and I'm really glad that I was able to get it because it's going to make my goal, one of my New Year's resolutions that I had made at the beginning of the year, a lot easier, because Bayou is one of the more expensive parts of this deck. I might have Turbo Depths built in paper, but if I'm able to somehow get a good deal on a playset of Mox Diamond, then I'll be able to have medium depths built by the end of the year. So really excited about the entire experience. If you've got any sort of comments that you'd like to, or if you've got any sort of like critiques for the 75 in the current metagame, not just, or I guess think about like the metagame that I talked about with when I'm expecting a lot of Tess and Delver and Bomberman with like a couple of graveyard decks and a couple of Veil of Summer decks. I don't know, just tell me what you guys think about the list. Is there anything that could have been improved with the cards? I don't know, I guess that's pretty much it. Pretty glad to do a little bit different of an episode today. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and peace.